Well, let's bring in Arshad Hasan, a Democratic Political Strategist. He joins us from Burlington, Vermont. Thanks very much for joining us on Al Jazeera. Looking at what Kimberly Halkett just had to say there regarding another debate, and that invitation has been extended. Donald Trump saying, I'll think about it. How likely is it that he would participate in another debate ahead of the election?
I'd love to see it, but I don't think it's going to happen, at least not for Donald Trump. I think it was pretty clear from the ending, how he ended that debate, that he didn't think he had a particularly good time. I don't think he wants to do that again.
Well, his performance and what some would conclude as having lost that debate, would that matter or make any difference to his support base so close to the election?
I think it does matter, and it matters for two particularly important reasons. First, that this was a debate that was going into it heavily scrutinized. People were going into it looking at it as a way to form new opinions. That doesn't actually happen that often anymore this late in an election, but it is beginning to happen now. And to recast the debate. The second reason why this debate was so critical, unusually critical, is because there are 7 battleground states where the election will be decided. And in each of these states, it's razor-thin margins. Harris leads in 3, Trump leads in 2, but each of those just by a couple digits. And in 2 of them, they're completely tied. A very small margin moving in either direction is going to make a significant difference. And in those states, that could tip the election.
Right, and looking at those undecided voters, Donald Trump has a particular reputation. There is one around showmanship. I imagine Kamala Harris had more to prove. Do you think she succeeded in potentially winning over those undecided voters?
I think so. Well, I think she did an excellent job here, but you are right. I think that the stakes were a bit higher for her. She had a few things that she needed to do here. She had to both introduce herself to voters who are going to be less familiar, but then also cast this debate as one in high contrast. And third, if she had time to really cast Donald Trump in a more negative light. I think she succeeded on each of these counts, and particularly in painting a contrast between the two. On the final count, I think Trump did mostly more damage to himself than Kamala Harris ever could.
And looking at potential damage that you say that Donald Trump might have done to himself, he said following this debate that it was rigged against him, and he also made some allegations regarding immigrants eating dogs and cats, eating pets in certain towns. That's been disputed. How do statements like that play out in terms of Trump never really taking responsibility for anything, if ever? Does that sort of translate in a bad way to potential voters?
This is, as I say, Trump did more damage to himself here than Harris probably could have done in the same amount of time. Trump actually spoke more during this debate, had more minutes of speaking time than Harris did, which normally that would be unfair to Harris. But every time Trump spoke, some fact checkers will vary, but some of the fact checking has as many as 48 falsehoods or lies. That's more than 1 a minute for every minute that he spoke. Some of the lies were so outlandish and so vicious that I think that undecided voters and maybe some of his own supporters or people who might be leaning Republican are beginning to reconsider their support for this president. Again, what Harris needed to do was paint a contrast, and Trump did that, really just walked right into that in a way that I myself didn't even imagine was going to happen. So in this case, I think Trump really did himself a disservice. I think he knows that. And I think that's why he's going and doubling down on some of the worst traits that he has, which, as you say, is a refusal to take any accountability for his own actions.
Arshad Hasan, it's good to speak to you again. Arshad Hasan is a Democratic Political Strategist. Thanks again for your time.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.